Discover the incredible power of 3 clear goals. Transform your mind and unleash hidden potential. Sarah stared blankly at the chaotic classroom, a whirlwind of restless bodies and uninterested eyes. For a decade, she'd poured her heart into teaching, yet today she felt transparent. The vibrant imaginations she had once ignited in her students had turned to ash, their disengagement wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Meanwhile, her family's dreams for her echoed louder than her passion, amplifying her sense of failure. As her self-doubt deepened, the day of the unexpected layoff loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to rain down the final blows to her aspirations. In the dim light of her late grandmother's weathered farmhouse, filled with whispers of resilience, Sarah shuffled through old books coated in dust. Each tome held echoes of perseverance, yet her spirit felt as tarnished as the silverware stacked in the corner. She caught sight of a letter tucked within the pages of a well-worn journal, penned in Mrs. Thompson's elegant hand, reminding her of the power of 3 clear goals. Tempted to reach out for guidance, she swallowed the thought, too paralyzed by the fear that she had let everyone down, including herself. The urge to connect trembled inside her as she picked up her phone, dialing Mr. Thompson's number. Would he recognize the same enthusiastic teacher he once mentored? Unease twisted in her stomach as she fought back tears, her mind racing through memories filled with inspiration and hope. His warm voice on the line anchored her, soothing the chaos. With each word he spoke about the transformative potential of setting clear goals, a flicker of hope stirred within her, battling back the layers of despair. Determined to reclaim her passion for education, Sarah mapped out a vision for an after-school program, excited to engage young minds with hands-on experiments. The thought invigorated her, connecting back to her purpose. Chasing the dream sent her into a spiral of creativity, reigniting the friendships she'd built with former students. Yet, as the launch day approached, darkness crept back in when whispers surfaced about Jake Bennett, the ambitious entrepreneur with flashy promises of quick success. Panic surged through her like icy rain. Would students flock to his proposal, leaving her noble vision stranded? Her conviction clashed with the seductive call of instant gratification, questioning whether she had what it took to compete. Each day, the weight of her family's expectations pressed down on her, lurking like a phantom, nagging her to reconsider her choices. How could she endure another failure, surviving on the fragile comforts of hope? The day of revelation drew closer, suffocating her with anxiety. But then an unexpected message arrived from a former student. "We believe in you, Miss Sarah." The support momentarily lifted her veil of doubt, yet the contrasting fear of inadequacy loomed, tightening its stranglehold. Would her genuine commitment matter in the era of quick fixes? As she prepared for the launch, standing on the precipice of a decision that could change her life, the tension in the air mirrored the turmoil in her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the day approached, Sarah faced a daunting choice. Should she forge ahead with her authentic mission, or step aside as Jake's influence eclipsed her dreams? She scanned the room full of anticipation, the familiar faces of her students nipping at her hope and dread like wasps. What if she failed? Would she be just another ghost in the crowd, lost in the noise of ambition? In that moment of heightened pressure, she could feel the truth of her journey pressing her against the wall. Is success defined by recognition, or is it in the quiet resolve of staying true to oneself? The morning of the launch arrived, a blend of excitement and dread bubbling within Sarah. She meticulously arranged colored science models on the tables, hoping to reignite her students' curiosity. Each toy, each book represented her dreams, a world of exploration where students could learn through play and experimentation. Yet, the sound of laughter from outside, students gathered around Jake's flashy presentation, thudded in her ears like a relentless drum. Her heart raced, torn between the thrill of her project and the encroaching fear of rejection. As the hour ticked closer, Sarah found herself enveloped in a moment of silence. She closed her eyes and inhaled the familiar scent of chalk and paper, an aroma laced with memories of her best teaching days. The nostalgia fortified her resolve. What was the worst that could happen? Rejection? Disappointment? She shook her head, vowing not to let fear control her. Every fiber of her being urged her to trust in the goals she had articulated, to fight for what she believed in. As the classroom door swung open, students trickled in, their eyes sparkling with a mix of curiosity and the allure of Jake's promises. Sarah pushed down the pit in her stomach and focused. "Welcome to Science Explorers. Today, we'll embark on some unique adventures right here in our classroom." Her words carried a warmth she hadn't felt in months. They felt like an anchor in a tumultuous sea. One by one, she introduced the hands-on activities, her voice lifting as she watched their wariness shift to enthusiasm. They experimented with chemical reactions, creating miniature volcanoes, squeals of delight erupting when the foam spilled over. In moments like these, she felt the exhilarating pulse of engagement, their laughter washing over her worries like a cleansing tide. But with each eruption of joy, the shadow of Jake's initiative loomed larger. Sarah grappled with the comparison. Was her effort significant enough? She glanced out the window to see a few students lingering by his sleek poster, their eyes brightened by promises of competitions and endless prizes. It stung, a sharp reminder that she was pulling against a current that thrummed with immediate success. As her thoughts spiraled, Sarah drew on the strength she had cultivated from her recent reflections. This wasn't merely a competition, it was about influence and genuine connection. She recalled Mr. Thompson's voice as he recounted the importance of authenticity in education, a powerful reminder that teaching was never about quick wins, but about long-lasting impact. "Let's discuss what you just created," Sarah smiled, pulling the students back from distraction. She opened the floor for questions, each interaction guiding them deeper into the material, her goals continuously evolving right in front of her. The energy shifted, and she knew she was breaking through. Then, amid her triumph, one student raised their hand, challenging her directly. "Miss Sarah, why should we choose to do this instead of the cool stuff Jake's offering?" The question pierced through her stance like an arrow, and Sarah took a deep breath. This moment could define everything. "I can't promise you flashy rewards, but I can promise you this. What you learn today may change your future," she replied, every word laced with authenticity. "In this room, we'll discover, question, and create deeper knowledge, building skills that last longer than immediate accolades." The students shifted, visibly processing her response. An uneasy tension danced in the air. Could she grab their attention with substance over glitz? As the final minutes of the session faded, Sarah felt alight with a confidence that had felt foreign just days earlier. But as they cleaned up, she caught a glimpse of Jake across the hall, his sharply dressed figure emanating charisma that made her doubt the potency of her mission again. Returning to her classroom, she pondered whether she could truly hold the line against such a powerful rival. Her goals sturdy but trembling beneath the weight of burgeoning pressures. Placing her hand over her racing heart, she wondered not just how she would confront Jake, but how much she believed in the potential she offered. Was she simply pursuing a dream, or had she unleashed a hidden part of herself ready to combat the superficial allure of quick success? With those conflicted thoughts swirling, another notification vibrated her phone. One more message from her past students. "We can't wait to learn more." The flicker of hope ignited again.
But uncertainty loomed over her as she prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Jake that awaited her. Would her commitment be enough to carve a path, or would she find herself swept away in someone else's dream? As the days passed after that energetic launch, Sarah found herself enveloped in a renewed sense of purpose. The students had shown signs of true engagement, but beneath the surface shimmer of success, doubts festered. The looming presence of Jake and his polished appeal tugged at her confidence, reminding her how quickly the focus could shift in a classroom. She envisioned her next steps clearly, but worried about execution. She spent her evenings preparing the next set of experiments, introducing concepts that required her calendar planning to stretch beyond the conventional. She started crafting 3 clear goals: ignite curiosity, encourage collaboration, and cultivate critical thinking. Each was a pillar she believed would support her students' learning journey beyond the glitz. During lunch breaks, Sarah often saw groups of students huddled around Jake, their giggles punctuating her thoughts with an ache of inadequacy. Each laugh felt like a reminder of the success that she was vying against. Rather than let it embolden her fear, she forced herself to observe. She noticed how his students interacted, not merely drawn in by the charms, but also groping for deeper knowledge, albeit masked behind flashy presentations. Instinct told her this was a pivotal moment for reflection. Each encounter unraveled layers of her collaboration plan, prodding her toward a fundamental decision. Perhaps it wasn't enough to compete directly with spectacle. She needed to engage her students in a way that spoke to their values and long-term dreams, not just a quick thrill. This realization spurred her into action. The following day unfolded differently in her classroom. Sarah initiated an experiment that combined art with science, creating models that represented chemical reactions using vivid colors. Students were tasked to work in groups, each with the directive to enhance each other's understanding. As they mixed colors and flourished creative designs, the classroom buzzed with constructive chatter. It felt alive, each interaction forging deeper ties to the learning process. As she walked around, leaning in to listen and encourage, a quiet pride took root within her. This was the community she envisioned, students fostering one another's growth, their engagement transformed from passive to active. The goals she'd outlined weren't simply academic targets, they reflected her hopes for their character and autonomy. Yet, as her confidence grew, so did her wariness of Jake's allure. They had a science fair coming up, a landscape of competition ripe for both ambition and insecurity. His polished presence and the draw of prizes would undoubtedly lure many students back to him. Still, there was something different nagging at her. She could not overlook the depth that was blossoming under her guidance, the connections forming, and the ideas emerging. But was this sustainable? In moments of quiet reflection, questions emerged. Was she merely delaying the inevitable, or was she planting seeds for genuine understanding? She recognized now that the confrontation wasn't merely with Jake, it had to be with her self-doubt. To galvanize her resolve, Sarah decided on a bold tactic. She would invite Jake to collaborate. The depth of that collaboration could shine a light on her students' emerging ideas, exposing their learning journey in a way that could challenge the very foundations of Jake's competition. Would he accept? Could this be the turning point they both needed? With thoughts racing through her mind, Sarah tapped out a text invitation. The moment stretched before her like an invisible thread, pulling taut with tension. The query hung in the air. Could they bridge the divide and create something impactful together? Or would she be left standing on a precipice of vulnerability as she sought connection in a competitive environment? As she pressed send, the fate of her classroom hung in a balance she hadn't anticipated, tension flickering like the images of her students' bright smiles. Would collaboration bridge their worlds, or would it deepen the chasm between her ideals and reality? The ensuing days would hold the answer, whether it forged a new path or reiterated that she was merely swimming against a tide. Days passed in curious anticipation, each hour laden with the weight of uncertainty. Sarah's heartbeat quickened with every notification, her phone becoming a vessel of possibility. A response from Jake seemed to hold the key to both collaboration and competition. She structured her classes meticulously, the art-science fusion becoming a symbol of her teaching philosophy, while lingering doubts nudged at the corners of her mind. Her students thrived amid color explosions, engaged in dialogues that circled around fundamental questions of science and creativity intertwined. They didn't just produce art, they articulated their thoughts, fostering a community of inquiry. But as vibrant as her class had become, the overshadowing reality of the science fair loomed. Jake's polished reputation cast a long shadow, eroding her moments of triumph and forcing her to confront her self-doubt regularly. She needed to harness this energy, not merely to survive, but to thrive. Thoughts churned within her, planning her next steps carefully, while she felt challenged by Jake's silent presence. Did her teachings resonate deeply enough to withstand the magnetism of his star quality? The morning of the deadline for Jake's response dawned. Her stomach twisted with anxiety as she scrawled last-minute notes to entice collaboration. Would he see the value in teaming up? The rolling waves of doubt threatened to drown her clarity of vision. Did she even have anything compelling enough to win him over? And then it came. A reply. "Let's meet," it read, simple yet fraught with implications. The tension reinvigorated her. This was an opportunity, yes, but also a risk. Each breath tasted of both fear and anticipation. She was aware that this moment could either solidify her approach or dismantle it entirely. The appointed time arrived. Consolidated nerves took the form of a meeting in the very heart of the school. They convened in a conference room, a stark space adorned with reminders of academic achievement. As they exchanged small talk, Sarah focused on the underlying motivations of the meeting. Would they genuinely pursue collaboration, or was this mere posturing? Jake leaned back, his posture exuding confidence. "I'm curious."
About your class dynamics. The art-science blend is innovative. How do you think we can implement that for the science fair? His interest seemed genuine, sparking sparks of hope and trepidation within her. As Sarah opened her mouth to respond, she landed on her plans. What if we combined our classes for a joint project? For the science fair, we could showcase not just results, but the process itself, focusing on how we made discoveries together, using each other's strengths. The proposal rolled off her tongue, surprisingly confident. Yet the moment of stillness that followed was heavy. Jake considered, brow furrowed, the silence threatening to slice through the air. She felt a sudden wave of vulnerability wash over her, the stakes rising as she awaited his judgment. Would he perceive this collaboration as a genuine opportunity, or would he dismiss it, maintaining the boundary of rivalry? Finally, he nodded, a contemplative smile breaking through. "I think there's potential here, but we'll need to align our objectives. Let's set clear expectations. What do you think?" Relief flickered through her. "Absolutely. Together, we can draft a framework that encompasses curiosity, collaboration, and critical thinking," Sarah replied, excitement mingling with anxiety. This was a pivoting point, an opportunity to merge their distinct approaches and energies. As they delved into the details, her confidence surged. But alongside it simmered the apprehension of failure, of losing the depth she had cultivated within her classroom to the veneer of spectacle he could provide. The meeting concluded, but Sarah felt the tug of conflicting emotions. They had taken the first crucial step toward collaboration, but a lingering question followed her like a shadow. Would they create something truly transformative, or would it merely serve as a reminder of the arduous path that lay ahead? As she left the conference room, the intricate balance between her vision and their collective potential hung tantalizingly in the air, ready to strike a definitive chord. The science fair would soon begin, and with it, the ultimate challenge awaited. Who would emerge victorious when their strengths converged, and could Sarah maintain her authenticity in the face of both collaboration and competition?
Sarah returned to her classroom, energized yet unsettled. The lingering possibility of collaboration with Jake both invigorated and intimidated her. It was no longer just about presenting her art-science fusion. Now it was about navigating a partnership that could either elevate her work or dilute it. The stakes had escalated, and she needed to assert her presence in this alignment without losing her distinct voice. In the days that followed their meeting, she embarked on a mission not only to articulate her vision, but also to construct a framework that could balance their wants. She started by revising her notes on team management and lesson plans. Rather than merely stringing together her lessons, she decided to build them like a relay, a shared journey toward a singular goal. Every class would not just represent her philosophy, but would challenge her students to think critically about
their contributions. They were not just artists or scientists, they were both, and it was time to show that dynamic in action. Each morning, as she prepped for class, she visualized the project. The art pieces would not only reflect personal interpretation, but also the scientific principles they'd return to again and again. She mapped out discussions on color theory alongside physics in natural phenomena, coaxing her students to narrate the story behind their artwork. The goal was both simple and revolutionary, at least to her, to manifest a shared ownership of the process. But with each passing day, Jake's persona weighed heavily on her resolve. Although they communicated frequently, the tone felt more transactional, as if he were merely checking boxes rather than engaging with the depth of her methodology. In those moments, she questioned the growing disparity between her authentic style and the polished performance he embodied. What if the partnership ceased to be synergistic and instead became competitive? Sarah found herself at a crossroads, intellectually stimulated yet emotionally drained. While pondering over her doubts, Sarah realized she had developed an innate strength throughout this journey, an unshakable perseverance motivated by clarity of purpose. It dawned on her. To stray from self-doubt was to reaffirm her competence and values. She decided her biggest challenge wasn't merely about impressing Jake. It was about maintaining the pureness of her approach while elevating the project through shared experiences. She requested a meeting with Jake to outline her vision more vividly. By presenting specific objectives, Sarah hoped to impress upon him the fundamental values of their collaboration: creativity, scientific inquiry, and personal growth. Walking into the cafe they had previously visited, she felt an adrenaline rush as she prepared to defend her beliefs. "Jake," she began, adjusting the papers neatly arranged in front of her, "I thought we should establish 3 clear goals for our project to unify our vision." She felt them solidify in her mind as she enumerated them: engagement through process, the interplay of art and science, and demonstrating student ownership of their learning journeys. He listened intently, a mixture of intrigue and skepticism flickering across his features. "I see where you're going with this, but how do we ensure cohesion? We can't have competing methods distracting from the objectives." The air thickened with tension as the calm before a storm swept through her. This was the moment to stand firm in her worth. "That's exactly what we're avoiding. This is a platform for our students to shine, not for either of us to outdo the other. If we align our methods, they can thrive." Jake's eyes narrowed as he considered her words. It was a delicate equilibrium she sought. Could he see the value in her passion without feeling threatened? The moment felt pregnant with possibilities, as the future of their collaboration hinged on this interaction. As their conversation unfolded, Sarah felt the stirrings of doubt rise and swell like waves against a rocky shore. While her convictions sought expression, the fear of rejection mocked her. She calculated the risks yet again. Each moment becomes a test of her resolve. But as she prepared to leave, uncertainty morphed into a thrilling prospect. What would happen if we combined our strengths to unleash something extraordinary? She positioned with excitement, watching for his reaction. The silence that followed hung in the air, a precipice between a remarkable alliance or the stark return to solitude.
Jake's expression displayed curiosity mixed with contemplation. This was the threshold. The path ahead promised either mutual acknowledgement or a pivoting failure. As she pushed through the cafe doors, the world outside swelled with myriad possibilities, yet her heart beat in sync with an unresolved tension. Would they meld their efforts into something innovative, or would it unravel into a battlefield of egos and expectations? The questioning loomed larger than before. What truths would emerge from their partnership, and would both of them emerge transformed in the pursuit of a shared dream? As the days passed, Sarah found herself ruminating more on her conversation with Jake than on the lessons she had meticulously drafted. Each attempt at clarity became clouded by her increasing anxiety over the collaboration. She had made her intentions clear, yet doubt infiltrated her mind like a persistent mist. Was she merely chasing a mirage of partnership that would never materialize? That week, she decided to pivot her focus back to her students. No more steering lessons toward a collaborative future until she felt her own footing was certain. Sarah aimed to cultivate an atmosphere of exploration, one where art and science could coexist organically without the weight of fulfillment imposed by adult expectations. She introduced a new exercise. Each student would create not just a piece of artwork, but a scientific hypothesis pertaining to their work. This challenge would facilitate their voices, urging them to think deeply and reflectively. The classroom buzzed with energy as Sarah watched her students engage in vibrant discussions. Some worked on color mixing, while others explored the physics of motion, drawing connections between their artistic pursuits and scientific principles. As she navigated through the groups, the warmth of witnessing her students flourish reignited her purpose. Perhaps this was the core of the project she sought: student empowerment through the art-science intersection, regardless of her partnership with Jake. However, her resolve faced disruption when she received a text from him late one evening. "Let's meet again tomorrow. I've been thinking," he wrote. Sarah hesitated. Her instinct screamed caution, mindful of the potential for discord. But curiosity tempered her apprehensions. What could he possibly want to discuss? She decided confronting this brewing uncertainty might prove beneficial. In the cafe, Jake had an unfamiliar intensity in his demeanor. "I've considered your points since our last talk," he began, leaning forward, the table between them all at once intimate yet isolating. Intrigued yet wary, Sarah urged him to elaborate. He continued, outlining a framework that could integrate their both methods while maintaining a focus on student engagement. The foundations of his suggestions stemmed from her concept of student ownership, a pleasant surprise. Yet a lingering hesitation pulsed in the air. As Sarah listened, she realized Jake's inclination toward structure echoed her earlier fears. What if his desire for cohesion tamed the wildness of creativity she cherished? The very balance she craved felt like it could tip towards control. "How do we ensure that your structure doesn't overshadow the creativity we aim to nurture?" she asked, her voice steady and curious, hiding the undercurrent of worry. Jake paused, visibly taken aback. "I suppose I need to trust the process more, but we can't let chaos govern the project either." This moment became crucial. Sarah felt empowered by her inquiry, but also aware that their habits clashed at a fundamental level. It was an opportunity to assert her vision constructively. "Then let's agree to create checkpoints within our framework where students can explore freely without predetermined boundaries." The conversation fostered a complex dynamic. For every step forward, doubt crept in, testing her resolve to remain anchored to her core values. They were in unexplored territory, and she sensed potential not only for their students but for themselves. But what if this path unveiled deeper strains between their fundamentally different approaches? As they wrapped up the meeting, Sarah weighed her excitement against caution, a delicate balance that would demand continuous renegotiation over the relationship. She left with a newfound sense of agency, yet doubts echoed in her mind. Was she ready to articulate her concerns clearly without alienating Jake? The escalating complexities of their collaboration loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. Sarah knew that her next confrontation needed to be tenacious yet delicate. The challenge of expressing her vision was underscored by the knowledge that her partnership with Jake could either crystallize their innovative pursuits or threaten to unravel into discord. The approaching weekend promised freedom, yet it also hinted at deeper reckoning. How could she foster a partnership without surrendering her voice? And as she considered their next steps, a troubling question persisted. Was the journey toward artistic fusion between their methodologies an evolution or a potential stranglehold on creativity? The following week dawned with a sense of urgency. The collaborative project loomed like a specter, growing larger with each passing day. Determined to harness her anxiety into productivity, Sarah initiated self-reflection paired with strategic planning. She understood that clarity was essential, not only for the students but for herself. Resolving to outline her own goals was crucial, a way to clarify her vision before fully engaging with Jake again. Sarah settled at her kitchen table, an expanse cluttered with sketches, notes, and colored pencils scattered about like remnants of a chaotic mind. If she strove for empowerment in her students, she needed to embody that spirit herself. She began writing. 1. Foster student autonomy. Design lessons that prioritize student exploration without strict boundaries.
Encouraging authentic voice and ownership over their creations. 2. Ensure creative freedom. Protect the essence of art from being stifled by structure. Create checkpoints where experimentation is encouraged and failures are regarded as part of the learning process. 3. Communicate with confidence. Express concerns and suggestions clearly to Jake, asserting her vision while remaining open to compromise. As she typed, Sarah could feel the dynamic energy of purpose seep into her being. Each goal resonated as a declaration of intent. She was not just a vessel for collaboration, but an active participant charged with ensuring that creativity remained paramount in their joint efforts. However, even as she mapped out her aspirations, looming doubts whispered against her resolve. Could she really uphold these ideals in the face of Jake's structured approach? Would he view her insistence on autonomy as a challenge rather than a complement to his organized framework? A wave of frustration washed over her. Why was collaboration so fraught with conflict? She questioned her willingness to have her vision overshadowed, even as she sought to build a partnership. Seeking clarity in her feelings, she took a deep breath, reflecting on interactions past, particularly the power dynamics at play. She recalled a moment from the previous meeting, how she had stumbled upon her own voice through her inquiry about the structure. It was a revelation. The fleeting surge of empowerment had taught her something critical. Leadership wasn't merely exerting authority. It was also about self-awareness, about knowing when to stand firm and when to yield to the collaborative spirit. Armed with that insight, she decided it was time to confront Jake with her list of goals. They had to lay the groundwork for their partnership explicitly. But first, she needed confidence to deliver her message effectively. Planning an approach became her immediate priority. What words would resonate with him? As the meeting approached, she repeated her goals like a mantra, hoping the clarity she sought for herself would translate into clear communication with Jake. The cafe where they would meet buzzed with morning energy, the aroma of brewed coffee mixed with the scent of freshly baked pastries. A warm ambiance offered solace, but it did little to quell the tempest within her. Each tick of the clock amplified her anticipation, and as Jake arrived, she noticed a subtle shift in the air, the familiarity of their discussions tinged with undefined tension. "Hey, Sarah," he greeted, his tone tentative. She gestured toward a table in the corner, where the buzz of the crowd felt more private. Taking her seat, they exchanged pleasantries, but an electric current of underlying apprehension thrived in every word spoken. "Let's get to it," Jake said, a hint of eagerness in his tone. Her heart raced. Now there was no turning back.
Sarah knew it was time to unveil her goals, each whisper of doubt replaced by a flicker of determination. Perhaps facing the storm, navigating the space between their visions, could yield something transformative. Jake, there are 3 key goals.
I've been contemplating for our project. The stakes felt higher than ever as she forged ahead into the murky waters of their partnership, knowing that how he received her words could set the course of their collaboration. And with that, she began to outline her vision. But as she spoke, uncertainty loomed ominously. Would this shift the tides towards mutual understanding, or would it deepen the divide? As Sarah spoke, she sensed Jake leaning forward, the tension between them tightening like a stretched wire. Her voice quivered slightly as she laid out her first goal, but she embraced the uncertainty as part of the challenge. Foster student autonomy, she stated, her words deliberate. We need to encourage exploration so they take ownership of their work. Jake nodded slowly, the muscles in his face revealing a mixture of interest and scrutiny. I can see how this could work, he said tentatively, but a flicker of skepticism crossed his brow. It made Sarah unexpectedly bold. She pressed on, encouraged by the hint of openness. Next, we must ensure creative freedom. We have to provide a space where experimentation is celebrated, she continued, the rhythm of her speech gaining steadiness. Her heart raced with the realization that she could own these ideas. She was beginning to take control of not just the conversation, but also her role in their collaboration. He shifted in his seat, his expression reflecting curiosity, but also a hint of reservation. I appreciate the intent, Sarah, but how do you envision balancing that with structured outcomes? His question hit a nerve. Was he questioning her knowledge, or was he genuinely concerned about practicality? The impulse to retreat loomed in her mind, but she fought it, leaning on the stronger, surer version of herself she discovered in her kitchen, the one who crafted those goals. Failures should be part of the learning process, she replied evenly, pushing through the tiny voice in her head that urged caution. We need to implement checkpoints where students can reflect on their work. It's about redefining success. If we prioritize strict outcomes, we might stifle their creativity before it even surfaces. She watched as his brow slowly unfurrowed. Was she imagining it, or did he begin to see glimmers of merit in her approach? Encouraged, she readied herself for her final goal, the crux of her philosophy, communication. Finally, I want us to communicate openly, she pressed, assuring herself with each new syllable. I need you to know that I'm ready to assert my vision while remaining open to compromise. We can't allow misunderstandings to derail our project. There was a pause, a vacuum of silence that felt decisive. Sarah could almost visualize their ideas swirling in the air, waiting to collide. She held her breath, heart thudding in her chest, fearing a momentary lapse into disbelief would diminish what she had just shared. You're right. Communication is key, Jake finally said, his tone thoughtful, albeit still guarded. But we need to ensure we remain anchored to our students' needs too. How do you think they'll respond to these changes? His question hung in the air, a tightrope stretched between enthusiasm and caution. Sarah realized the profound implications of their exchange. This could either reinforce her magnum opus or unravel it entirely. Having faith in our students is essential, she replied, fighting against rising doubt. Her instincts told her to elaborate, to convince him further, but she also recognized this was a moment to listen. What are your thoughts on how we can align our visions more effectively? Jake leaned back, considering her words with a pensive stare. The atmosphere shifted again, laden with the weight of possibilities. This was a moment of vulnerability, where the balance of their partnership teetered on a knife's edge. Would he engage with her ideas, or would he dismiss them entirely, sending her back into a spiral of questioning her worth? As the conversation unfolded, Sarah felt a cautious optimism creeping in. More than just articulating her goals, she was stepping into the light of her authenticity, challenging herself to confront potential rejection. Let's explore how to merge your ideas with the structure our students require then, Jake finally suggested, eyes brightening with the prospect of joint exploration. Maybe we can test some of these concepts in small groups and gather feedback. Relief washed over her, threading through her resolve. This was her chance, not just for their project, but for growth as an educator and collaborator. As they delved into specifics, Sarah noted the spark in their dialogue evolving into shared creativity. Yet, beneath the surface of her budding sense of achievement, a fear lingered. The risk of vacillation, of compromise leading to a dilution of her original vision. She realized this journey demanded unyielding commitment, not only to the project, to her own values. But just as she felt she was seizing control, a shadowy thought crept in. Was she being too bold? Was this newfound determination going to push Jake away or draw him closer? As their conversation continued, Sarah grappled with the quest for balance. The closer they moved towards solidifying their partnership, the more she wondered if she could maintain her voice without overshadowing his presence. The question lingered in her mind, echoing a potent truth. How transparent could she remain without compromising her ideology? And just as clarity appeared within reach, an impulsive thought flashed across her mind. Was there more at stake than simply their project? The next step felt crucial. What hidden power could she unlock in herself through this venture, and at what cost? With anticipation coursing through her veins, Sarah sensed this meeting was only the beginning. The real challenge was still ahead, and it loomed large. As their discussion deepened, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something transformative. The subtle shifts in Jake's demeanor suggested he was opening up to her vision, yet a nagging doubt lingered. Would he genuinely accept approach? Or was he just paying lip service until something more conventional came along? Let's create an environment where students feel free to express themselves, she proposed, her tone gaining a rhythm that felt increasingly natural. What if we incorporated weekly brainstorming sessions? It could provide them a platform to collaborate and innovate. They could share their ideas without the fear of immediate judgment. Jake frowned slightly, clearly pondering the practicality of the idea. She watched his furrowed brow, hoping he wouldn't dismiss her suggestion. They had come this far. More defenses of her concepts could set the pace for their partnership. I'm thinking about the logistical side. How do you envision facilitating these sessions without adding to our workload? A familiar tension rose within her chest, the urge to retreat. She inhaled deeply and steadied her breath, resisting the impulse to downplay her ideas. I believe we can integrate them seamlessly into our existing framework. It's about optimizing what we already do. This isn't additional work, it's an evolution of our practice, she asserted, the conviction in her voice surprising even herself. Jake's expression softened. I see where you're going. By merging our goals with the existing curriculum, we might achieve more engagement. His acknowledgement was a flicker of light in the dim corridor of uncertainty they had been traversing. But then another concern hit her. Would she allow herself to be genuinely bold? Each time she stepped forward, she felt the weight of previous self-doubts creeping back, constraining her initiative. Could she trust this emerging side of herself? Absolutely, she responded, her voice steady. We can establish metrics that assess student engagement rather than solely focusing on content mastery. This way, we shift our focus toward understanding their individual processes. Jake visibly relaxed, and his enthusiasm began to spark again. That could lead us to a greater understanding of how they learn. I'm beginning to see this could be a strong foundation for both of us. As they shaped the goals together, she felt excitement flicker through her veins. This wasn't merely collaboration, it felt like an awakening. Her ideas were crystallizing, and she discovered a profound resilience in asserting her vision. But a shadow, a whisper of insecurity, warned her of potential overreach. The tension in her chest flared once more as Jake continued to probe. What if we encounter resistance from the administration? How flexible are you willing to be when faced with pushback?
That was the question she had been dreading. "I understand the risk," she admitted, her heart racing, "but this vision is rooted in my belief that education should empower. If we don't advocate for it, who will? It's about prioritizing real learning." His gaze sharpened. "That's a solid point. But the question isn't just about our ambition as educators. Are we prepared for the potential fallout?" Every word he uttered was an echo of doubt in her mind, a potent reminder of her former hesitations. It resulted in an internal clash that threatened to derail
everything she fought to articulate. The hypothetical specter of failure loomed, large and foreboding, affecting the clarity of her convictions. "You're right," she finally said, hesitating. "It's a delicate balance, but it's inherent in what we're learning, to navigate this labyrinth of expectations and still find a pathway that feels authentic." He nodded as realization washed over his features. "Perhaps the key is to remain adaptable, while also finding ways to communicate our priorities clearly. We might reduce the risk of compromise diluting our goals if we're on the same page." At that moment, Sarah recognized the potent synergy beginning to pulse between them. They were undergoing a dance of challenge and collaboration in a space where vulnerability met vision. Embracing the uncertainty, she felt a flicker of her original spark return, the revelation of hidden strengths she hadn't fully acknowledged before. But the question of her ability to sustain this development long-term loomed large in her mind. It felt reckless to be caught in this rhythm of experimentation. What if her voice faltered as they advanced? Would her authenticity survive the inevitable clashes that loomed ahead? In the midst of this realization, Sarah glimpsed the winding path before her. Each step contained the potential for either growth or retreat. The stakes were higher than ever as they crafted strategies, and at that moment she resolved to keep forging ahead. As their conversation drew to a close, a shiver of anticipation surged through her. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. What new depths of her character would she need to explore to navigate the forthcoming challenges? Sarah felt the electricity in the air, aligned as partners, encouraging each other, yet aware they stood on the brink of something transformative. When the time for implementation arrived, she would need to confront her abilities and fears head-on. Was she prepared to face the test that lay ahead, or would the brilliance of her vision flicker out as doubts crept in? As the weight of these questions settled over her, Sarah knew their journey was just beginning, and the stakes could very well transform her future forever. As the day of the science fair arrived, Sarah felt a surge of both excitement and trepidation. Her collaboration with Jake had unfolded in ways she had never anticipated, transforming her teaching approach and her view of her own capabilities. The classroom buzzed with energy as students set up their projects, showcasing their unique blend of art and science. The atmosphere thrummed with creativity. Everywhere, signs of their learning journey displayed the gravity of hard work and thoughtful exploration. Sarah took a moment to absorb the scene before her. The students, once chaotic and lost, now active participants in their own learning. Each colorful poster, meticulously crafted model, and enthusiastic presentation told a story of growth, curiosity, and exploration. The laughter bouncing off the walls reminded her of the optimistic spirit that had sparked her journey in teaching. Each child's face beamed with pride, revealing a budding confidence that echoed her own transformation. But alongside her pride lingered unease. Jake's presence at the fair, charismatic and magnetic, loomed in her mind. Would the specter of his strong personality overshadow the achievements of her students? She quickly dismissed the thought. This wasn't merely about competition. Their joint efforts had cultivated an innovative and engaging environment, one that would showcase their collaboration rather than personal egos. As judges began to arrive, Sarah navigated through her students, offering encouragement and support. She emphasized their strengths, reminding them that the essence of their work was the process, the joy of discovery, rather than the accolades it might bring.
"You've all done an incredible job, and today is your time to shine," she affirmed, her confidence strengthening with every passing moment. When it was finally time for her class to present, Sarah watched her students bloom into leaders before her eyes. They spoke passionately about their experiments, sharing insights with clarity, powered by the autonomy and ownership they had experienced in the classroom. Each response was veiled in excitement. Sarah realized these students weren't just showcasing projects, they were advocating for their learning journey. As Jake joined the panel to assess the projects, Sarah felt a nervous flutter in her stomach. She couldn't deny the part of her that questioned if they would be judged fairly, if their unorthodox approach would resonate with the judges. But as she observed the interaction between Jake and her students, she felt a wave of relief. He engaged deeply, intrigued by their knowledge. The two methodologies she had been so worried about blending harmoniously unveiled themselves in unexpected ways. At the end of the fair, as the final projects were assessed, the room buzzed with anticipation. When the judges announced the winners, it was clear that the real victory lay beyond the awards. Third place was awarded to a project that distinctly demonstrated a blend of artistic creativity grounded in scientific inquiry. As Jake stood beside Sarah, who was surrounded by her elated students, he turned to her with admiration. "Your vision has sparked something incredible in them." In that moment, Sarah experienced a breakthrough. She had demonstrated that authenticity and creativity could thrive in collaboration. By prioritizing her values, engaging with her students, and remaining true to her goals, she not only reclaimed her passion, but solidified her identity as a transformative educator. The feedback from the judges was overwhelmingly positive. They praised the depth of understanding each student displayed, eloquently tying together the creative and the scientific. As awards were presented, Sarah received heartfelt, sincere compliments from colleagues and parents alike, validating her efforts. With genuine warmth, a parent approached her, echoing what Sarah had feared most. "You've brought a renewed spark to our children's love of learning." As she heard those words resonate within her, the weight of uncertainty began to dissolve. Sarah stood tall, not only as a teacher, but as a figure of empowerment. She realized her ambitions were no longer dictated by the shadows of her past self. Instead, each day had slowly sculpted her into a committed advocate for authentic education. Now, with her head held high and a newfound sense of confidence, Sarah resolved to continually inspire both her students and herself by nurturing those clear goals that had initially propelled her forward. In that moment of triumph, Sarah understood that her journey encompassed growth, adaptability, and a profound commitment to her students and herself. She had proven not only her competence, but also her resilience in the face of adversity, emerging not merely as a teacher, but as a leader equipped to face future challenges. Sarah felt fulfilled in a way she hadn't experienced before. This was her achievement. The echoes of applause faded, but the lessons remained echoing in her heart, marking a transformation she would carry forward. She was ready to embrace whatever path lay ahead, stronger and more resilient than ever. If you found inspiration in Sarah's journey, this is the moment to join us. You need to subscribe now to our channel for more exclusive emotional stories that ignite your spirit and motivate your ambitions. Don't wait even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these transformative messages reach more hearts eager for change. Comment below your thoughts and reactions about Sarah's incredible evolution, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of personal overcoming stories. Your support makes a difference.